Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. The curves and lines in this image are an important part of the composition. The content of the picture is almost secondary, as the strong graphic element holds the viewer's attention. This is achieved by carefully controlling the highlight produced by the lighting. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is what I've got set up so far. It's just a small table on a lighting stand. Now, I'm using that on purpose, but I'll come back to why I'm doing that a little later. So the other thing that I've got set up at the moment is the camera, which I have on this tripod at the front here. Now on the front of the camera here, I have a 120mm lens. Now this is a medium format camera, and therefore if you're using a full frame format, you want something around about 70mm to give you the same field of view. The camera itself is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to follow along and see the results as I get them. Okay, so to start with the subject then. What I'm going to do is just place a glass on this table and I'm going to use that to set up the rest of the image. There we go. Now obviously there's nothing in it yet, but I'll put something in it a little later. Okay, so the next thing to do will be to just set up the image in the viewfinder of the camera. So looking through the viewfinder, first thing I'll do is just go for a rough focus. So about there somewhere, I think. And I just want to wind the camera up on the center column until the top of the glass is perfectly level. There we go. Okay, so with all that done, next thing to do would just be to grab an image with no flash set, just to make sure that we don't get any contamination from the house lights. So I'll turn the camera on, and these are the settings that I have on the camera at the moment. So it's in full manual mode. I have a shutter speed of 1/125th of a second, which is the flash sync speed for that camera, ISO 100, and at the moment I've got an aperture set of f11. Now it's probably going to be sufficient depth of field for a subject of this sort of size at this sort of distance, but we'll see how we go. So with those settings, what I'll do, grab an image and we'll just see what we get. Okay, so you can see from that there is barely any image there at all. There's a few highlights from the house lights, but I'm not particularly bothered about those. Okay, so that means that I'm now safe to proceed to add my studio light, and any light which I add from now on will be the only light which affects the subject. So to create that image with the highlight down the glass, what I'm going to do is use a softbox, and I'm going to place it initially about here somewhere. There we are. So this is a 500 joule battery powered studio head, and on the front of that I've got a 4 by 1 foot softbox, and that's what I'm going to use to light this image in its entirety. I don't need any other lights, this should be sufficient. Okay, so with this just at an arbitrary energy level, what I'll do is grab an image just to set a base exposure. Okay, so we can see from that the exposure is way down, so I need to add possibly 2 stops. Now I can do that through the flash sync trigger, which on this camera is built in. So I'll just bring up the flash sync trigger, select that light, and I'll add 2 stops. There we go. So with that, I'll just grab that again. There, that's the sort of thing. Now there's a few things that you can see immediately about this image. First of all, there's all sorts of things in the background. So to address that, I'm just going to use a flag behind the subject. Okay, so with the flag now in place, that should get rid of all the distractions in the background. The next thing to notice about the image is that the highlight on the glass here isn't really in the right place, but it's quite difficult to tell because I only have the glass in place. So at this point what I'm going to do is add the bottle. Okay, so now that we've added that and made that change to the background, let's grab that again and see what we get. There we are, so that's starting to come along a little, and from this it's easy to see that the highlight is in nowhere near the right place, and it's stopping fairly abruptly halfway down the glass. So what I want is the highlight to wrap right around the glass, which is why I've used this small table, so that I can get part of the light here to be actually underneath it, and that should wrap around the glass a bit more. So let's do that to start with. What I'm going to do is just drop this down on the stand to about there. I think at the same time I'll just move it in a little bit. There we go. So with those changes made, we'll have another go. Okay, so two things have happened here. The first is that we've got the highlight wrapping around the glass a bit more. It's also got considerably brighter, so this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. And that increase in exposure is purely down to just moving the light in ever so slightly. At this scale, small movements make a huge difference to the overall effect. Okay. So position-wise, this isn't too bad. It does need to be adjusted. The glass needs to go a little bit further behind the bottle. And I think the light needs to wrap around a little more. It's not on the edge of the bottle as it is. So to address that, what I'm going to do is use live view so I can set up the shot. So I'll start up live view on this computer. And now with that image on the screen, I can just move the bottle until it's in the right position relative to the glass. I think there is no right and wrong to this, but I think it wants to be about there. In fact, I think the whole bottle needs to come up ever so slightly, because I think it will help the composition. So what I'm going to do is just add a piece of wood here, just to raise the bottle up a little. There we are, and now I can just place the bottle, and I'll just watch the screen and get that in something like the right position. Okay, so with that set, what I can do is dispense with the live view, and we'll grab another image. There, now that's really starting to get there now. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So I'm getting a nice clean line down the bottle, and I'm getting a nice clean line down the glass, but it's still not quite in the right place yet. I want it right on the very edge of the bottle. So in order to make that wrap around a little more, you just need to move the light. So what I'm going to do is just move the light a little bit further back, like this. There we are. Now in this new position, we'll give that a go and see what happens. Okay, I've got the light in the edge of the shot, but I'm not really that bothered about that. But you can see that this has now moved the highlight. So this is what I had before, and this is what I've got now. It's also made quite a large amount of refraction through the bottle here, but I'll address that shortly. Also, if we have a close look, you can see that there are now multiple reflections within the glass, and the glass itself is slightly out of focus. So to address those points one at a time, let's sort the focus out first. So once again, I'll use live view, and I'll just zoom all the way in to the edge of the glass there, like that. And now I can just carefully adjust the focus on the lens until both the glass and the bottle have a nice crisp focus. I can also see that the edge of the glass here isn't quite as level as I'd like. so I can adjust that on the center column of the tripod. Just take that down a little. So about there, I think. That's good. We'll just lock that off. Dispense with live view. And I'll grab another image. Okay, so that's sorted out the focus issues. That's all pretty good now. Just a little bit of fine tuning on the position of the light. So I'm just going to move it round a little more. By feathering it like this towards the camera, I'm actually giving a larger surface area here. So the stripe, the highlight, should get wider, and it should also just wrap round that little bit more. Let's just grab that and see what happens. Yes, there we go. That's made a difference. So this is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. Okay, so the next thing to do is address the multiple iterations of the highlight in the glass. And to do that, what I've done is I've just cut this piece of black card so that it will fit inside the glass. So I'm just going to pop that in the glass, and hopefully that will stop those reflections. There we are. And along the top of the card on the here, I've just got a small magnet, just to act as a weight, just to keep the whole thing down into the glass. So just with that in position, let's grab that and see what happens. There, that's got rid of that internal reflection. So if I just zoom in, and I go to the previous image, this is what we had. So we have all this going on inside the bottle, and we have this going on in the glass. Then on this image, all that has gone, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so now it's time just to add a little bubbly. Just pop that in there. We'll just grab that. We'll take a few whilst the bubbles dissipate. I think I'll just top up the level. Another go. Okay. So there we have it. That has now been captured, and the next stage is just to pop that into Photoshop and do the bare minimum of post-production. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the file of the image that I captured earlier. Now this one is one of the ones with the glass quite full, and I preferred these ones. It shows quite a lot of quite nice bubbles going on there, and we've got all the rest of the bubbles coming up through the liquid. And I think overall that works quite well. So I quite like that. Okay, so just for workflow and redundancy, what I'm going to do is just make a copy of this and edit the copy. So I'm going to go onto the background layer here, right click the mouse, ask for a duplicate layer, but ask for a new document. And we'll just call this glass. So now I can shut down the camera original. I've always got that to go back to. This is the file that I'll be editing. So the first thing that I want to do is just look at the general composition for this. Now I'm using this for video, so what I'm going to do is take a crop of the image, and I'm going to use a specific ratio, 16:9, and I'm just going to move the image over so that it's more on the third of the image, just to one side, something like that. There we are. And while I'm here, I can also just check that the glass is level. So I'll just grab the straighten command there and just run that along the top of the glass. There we are. And with that, I'll just click on OK. Now, as the background here is black, what I can do is just add another layer just to get rid of all this on this side. So I'll just add that layer, and then on this layer all I'm going to do is just paint over that with black. So I'll make sure that black's selected as my foreground colour, find a paintbrush, and I'll just paint black on that side just to get rid of all that distraction. And I'll just do the same to this small amount that we've got down the bottom there, coming through there. And there we have it. So by carefully positioning the light to give me the highlight running along the glass and the bottle in just about the right place, I think that's ended up looking really rather good. Okay, well, I hope you like watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.